Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to a very special edition of TXN Sports World. This is our TXN Sports World 2023 Year in Review special. I am your host, Anthony Florio, and I am joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting perhaps the presence of Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we will catch him up on what he missed. Or if not, then we'll have him back with us tomorrow night for the Week 17 edition of TXN Sports World NFL Friday. 2023 in the world of sports. It was a tale of two different types of year, if you really think about it. The start of the year, you could say it was status quo in the world of sports. On the other side of the coin, you could say, we had some parity. We had things we'd never seen before. So we had a year where we saw not one, not two, but three different teams do something they had never done in their franchise history: win a championship. Well, like I said, at the start of the year, was pretty much status quo. Kicking off in the month of January. But before we get into that, right out of the box, it started as scary can be. A highly anticipated Monday Night Football game between my Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati on a Monday night, the second night of the year. We all saw what unfortunately happened to Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin made a tackle and got hit so hard that he ended up going into cardiac arrest and nearly died. But it was the speedy efforts, the urgent efforts, the immediate efforts of the medical team. And if it wasn't for that, Damar Hamlin would have very likely had died that night. But that young man fought and fought and fought, and somehow, some way, he survived and is still alive to this day. So much so that he's even played a few snaps this season. They've been very careful with him, but that was without a doubt the scariest scene that MF and I had ever experienced during a game. I mean, we've had injuries, yes, but never anything like that. It was so bad that they called the game off. The game was canceled. It was never rescheduled. And that was the story on that. And then a week later, we had the national championship game. The Maine and Georgia Bulldogs went up against the upstart TCU Horned Frogs. TCU had upset Michigan in the college football playoff semifinal. And on the other side of the coin, you had the Maine and Georgia Bulldogs defeating the Ohio State Buckeyes. And those two teams gave us the two greatest college football playoff semifinal matchups we had ever seen. Both of them were five-star classics. Both of them were chock full of Shakespearean drama at its absolute finest, especially that Ohio State-Georgia game. I mean, where Georgia survived that missed field goal right as the new year started. I mean, that's a moment MF and I will never forget. And man, but unfortunately, the national championship game, would not be as exciting. It ended up being the most dominant championship performance in the history of championship games in any sport, pro or college. The Maine and Georgia Bulldogs basically threw around the TCU Horned Frogs like Brock Lesnar threw John Cena around the ring at SummerSlam 2014. That's how bad it was. 65-7 in an absolute dud of a national championship game. The status quo would continue into the month of February, where the Kansas City Chiefs captured their second Super Bowl championship in 4 years when they defeated the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57, 38-35. Philly looked really good in that game, but then there was a kickoff return that was a turning point for Kansas City. And unfortunately, it got marred by a late penalty on James Bradbury that opened the door for Kansas City. Butker with the field goal, and the Kansas City Chiefs captured another Super Bowl championship. Status quo. And then, of course, we had the NCAA tournament, where a familiar face captured another championship. That being the UConn Huskies, winning their 5th national championship in school history, their first in 9 years, when they defeated another upstart team, the San Diego State Aztecs, in that championship game in April. And it was their 5th national championship in the history of the school. And then, we had nothing really of note in the month of May. But then in the month of June, this is where we went from status quo to parity. In a span of 2 consecutive nights, starting on June the 12th, the Denver Nuggets made history by capturing their first ever NBA championship, defeating the Miami Heat in 5 games, winning the championship on their home floor of the Ball Arena, formerly the Pepsi Center in Denver. A special moment for the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic, unanimous MVP, winning the Bill Russell NBA Finals Most Valuable Player trophy. And a special moment for the Denver Nuggets and their fans, a team that was a laughingstock for so many years. And here they were, winning their first ever NBA championship. And we were all very happy for them. But the first time championship fun did not stop. 24 hours later, June 13th, the Vegas Golden Knights, 6 years in the league, made history by not only winning their first ever Stanley Cup, but also becoming the fastest team to ever do it. 6 years in the league, and they captured their first ever Stanley Cup championship in another dominant championship performance. In the clinching game against another upstart team in the Florida Panthers, they jumped on them early and often and defeated them by a score of 9-3 to win their first ever Stanley Cup. Bruce Cassidy, the architect behind that. And what can I say? Bruce Cassidy, the guy who took the Boston Bruins to the Stanley Cup final in 2019, came up a game short against the St. Louis Blues. But this time he got the job done. He had been fired after the previous season by the Boston Bruins. And let's not discount the Boston Bruins in the NHL this year. Yes, Vegas went on to win it all, but Michael Bullock's Boston Bruins made history of their own, setting records. They won an NHL record 65 games last season and also recorded 135 points, yet were upset in the first round, blew a 3-1 series lead against the Florida Panthers in the first round, a series they should have won, but they gagged it away. And Florida took that momentum all the way to the Stanley Cup final before losing to the Vegas Golden Knights. And then, nothing really much happened after that. We did have a lull where we didn't really do any shows because we didn't really have much content to work with. But then, of course, that would pick up at the end of August and into September with the return of the college football season. And let me tell you, the New Year's Six, this New Year's Six slate is one of the most stacked New Year's Six slates I've ever seen. And later on, we will be diving in and giving you our thoughts as to who we think will come out on top in those New Year's Six matchups. Headlined, of course, by the college football playoff semifinals, which also features the most anticipated Rose Bowl game in the over 100-plus year history of the granddaddy of them all. And we're going to break it down for you in just a little while. And then from there, in the month of October, we had, of course, the baseball playoffs. And where we had dominant teams such as MF's Atlanta Braves, who finished with the best record in baseball, winning 104 games. A great story, the Baltimore Orioles, winning their first AL East division title in 9 years. Of course, their first 100-win season in 43 years, since 1980, since the days of Earl Weaver and all those guys. But they got upset in the division series, as did the Atlanta Braves. They got upset in the division series. And MF's Braves ended up losing to the same team that beat them the previous year, the Philadelphia Phillies. But there was a new kid in town, and there were new kids in town. When we got to the LCS, everybody was thinking, oh, we're probably going to get an Astros-Phillies rematch. Yeah, the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks both had something to say about that. The Texas Rangers jumped out to a 2-0 lead, winning the first 2 games in Houston. The Astros won the next 3 in Texas, and we're thinking, oh, here we go again. Astros are going to win again. But the Rangers came back and won games 6 and 7 in Houston and went on to win only their 3rd American League pennant, their first in 12 years. And the Arizona Diamondbacks, here's a team that came out of absolute nowhere, pulled another upset, upsetting another 100-win team in the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then on top of that, defeated, they knocked off the Philadelphia Phillies in the LCS, and it set up a very unique World Series matchup with the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And when all was said and done, the Texas Rangers, another first-time champion, winning their first ever World Series championship on the 1st of November. And they did it in grand style, putting away the Arizona Diamondbacks in Game 5 in Arizona and captured their first ever World Series championship. And what a special moment that was. And we got to relive that moment. We got to have that moment during our Wednesday Night Madness program, where MF did the commentary. Go back and look at it. And then after that, pretty much nothing happened after that. I mean, how about the big signings during the hot stove period? I mean, Juan Soto going to the Yankees. And, of course, the 2 big signings by the Los Angeles Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto, spending well over $1 billion just to get those guys. And it's going to make for a very interesting baseball season in 2024. Other things to watch for in 2024, of course, the now 12-team college football playoff format. This is the last year of the 4. Next year, we triple that. We go to 12. And it's going to make for some... You could consider it a mini NCAA tournament, only on the football side of things. And boy, howdy, I can't wait for that, honestly. An interesting year in the world of sports, to say the very least, which started status quo. You know, Georgia winning another national championship, the Chiefs winning another Super Bowl, the UConn men winning another national championship. But it will also be remembered for the 3 first-timers, like the Denver Nuggets, like the Vegas Golden Knights, and especially the Texas Rangers. An incredible year in sports in 2023. I can't wait to see what 2024 brings. And, you know, we're going to get into the good stuff in just a little bit. But there isn't anything left for me to say except good old MF Michael Fletcher, come on in. We were together for all those special moments. And Bullock was definitely a part of that too. But we had the front row ringside seat, if you will, for all those moments, including that dud championship game. And of course, that 5-star Super Bowl in which the three of us got together with our dear friends, Mike Silvera and Brian Keenan. And we'll never forget that. And I know we're definitely planning on doing that again come February. But MF, you heard all the stories. Started status quo. But how about it? 3 first-time champions this year. And as a guy who loves fresh teams winning, I couldn't have been any more happier. But other than that, what were your standout moments in the year that was sports 2023?
Yeah, I mean, this year was a very unique year. We'll say it like that. Like you said, it started out with the status quo, especially out of the jump off. Georgia successfully defending their national championship, Kansas City winning yet another Super Bowl. If you remember, Anthony, the NCAA tournament, the college basketball tournament, was, I think you can even say, the most wide open tournament we've ever had. A lot of the favorites were bowing out very early in the tournament. Yes, UConn won it all, but if you remember the Final Four, it was not a Mount Rushmore of teams. It was up and coming teams that make Cinderella runs to make the championship game. UConn was kind of the status quo, the blue blood of the group. Even the Final Four really never transpired. If you want to talk about greatness, for the first time ever in NCAA history, I know we never covered this, but the women, their Final Four was actually more thrilling, more exciting than the men this year. The LSU women's Tigers winning the national championship for their first time ever, another first-time winner with Kim Mulkey and Angel Reese, who ended up being the most outstanding player in the Final Four. And it was, without a doubt, I mean, you want to talk about incredible moments and excitement, you got to go out of your way to watch, the viewership, the arena, the excitement that was generating on social media for the women's Final Four. It actually outdrew the men for the first time since they started this, March Madness. Let's combine the two together. Because remember, it was during the COVID year how there was a lot of people upset about the way that the men were getting treated to 5-star, top luxury stuff, and the women were really disrespected in a way. And the NCAA was like, okay, we're going to make this right. The women will get the same respect and the same love as the men's do from now on. And when they did that, they opened the field up. It went up to 68 teams. They mirrored what the men did. And for the first time ever in NCAA history, the women outdrew the men in the ratings, where the championship game, actually the women did better than the men in the Final Four and national championship game, because you had two great teams at the end battling for the national championship. It was, without a doubt, the most exciting Final Four we've ever seen in women's basketball, and it really took that star, and now it's made it rise a lot. So, did anybody expect the women to outdo the men, and especially in the NCAA and March Madness? Absolutely not. But they did, and that was an eye opener for many of us, to say the very least. So yeah, you had that. And then once you get into the summer, like you said, Denver winning the NBA championship, the road that they had to go through was absolutely incredible. Then once you get into the fall, yeah, you even said it, Anthony, the Texas Rangers A lot of people didn't expect them to win the baseball championship, but the thing was, if you notice, all the top teams again falling out in the playoffs. Atlanta out in the divisional. The Dodgers out in the divisionals. These were like the top teams in baseball getting drowned out early in the playoffs. It really called into question Rob Manfred and the playoff format. That if you do 2 out of 3, you win that series. You go up against a team that has a whole week off, and we all saw what happened. Obviously, Houston was the exception to the rule. They made it to the World Series, but then they flamed out at the end thanks to thanks to the Texas Rangers. And I'll even admit it, the World Series itself was a very good. Vegas Golden Knights winning the Stanley Cup was without a doubt one of the biggest thrills for me. I normally don't get those type of moments in my career. There's very rare nowadays I get to call first time winners in any sports. And not only do I get to call a first time winner for the NHL, I got to call a first time winner in Major League Baseball. That very rarely ever happens nowadays in sports. With the way that the salary cap is structured, the parity in the leagues, where certain teams are going to be there at the end. Vegas, they were there the first year. They came out of nowhere, started making their run, doing really good, and they just caught fire at the right time, and they made it all the way to the Cup final. And to win the Stanley Cup for the first time ever in their franchise history, 5 years in. And they got themselves the Stanley Cup. And it was without a doubt one of the coolest moments for me. Got to call it in Vegas. See that moment happen. One of my highlights of my career, to say bar none, because like I said, first time winner. There's been so many times, I've gotten to call some great moments, and that was one that I'm never gonna forget. So, yeah, and like you said, it looks very promising for 2024. We'll get into the New Year's Six in just a little bit, but that's going to be the start, the jump off for all of us, and then of course we go through the motions, the Super Bowl in February, and then upward and onward. If you're thinking about right now where the NHL is going, right now maybe we might be calling. I don't know. I don't want to jinx it just yet. I don't want to jinx it, but I got a very good feeling that I have not gotten a chance to ever do this in my lifetime. I got to do it with the Atlanta Braves. I've done it with the Chicago Bulls. I've yet to had a moment with the Miami Dolphins, but I got to say it. I think there's a legit chance we might be calling on New York Rangers Stanley Cup championship. I'm not going to say it's in the cards or that the stars are aligning, but right now it's looking pretty good. I'm not going to say, I don't want to call it and say we're going to win the Stanley Cup, but you're the top team in the East right now. And you're right there in contention for the President's Trophy for best record in the league.
That's right.
I think there's a chance.
30 years, man. 30 years.
I mean, I don't want to say it's gonna, but there's a chance here. We gotta, to be this good at this point in the season. It's a very, very, very good sign for the New York Rangers right now. So, like I said, I'm not going to call it. I don't want to do that yet. We start to really start thinking about Stanley Cup once you get into April. Then you start thinking and dreaming of the Stanley Cup. But the way the Rangers have been playing, especially lately, I think there's a legit argument where you can say the Rangers have a chance at the Stanley Cup right now. Now, can they put it all together and win it all? We'll wait and see what happens. One side note I normally don't cover, but UEFA Champions League, Man City, they got the treble. If you don't know what the treble is, for all you soccer fans, that's when you win your league or your country's soccer league. They play in EPL, which is English Premier League, which is, if you want to make an argument, probably one of the best soccer leagues in the world today, and the most highly anticipated, the most covered in all of sports. They won that. They won the FA Cup, which is one of the most oldest trophies in Europe. And then you win the Champions League, which is basically the tournament of champions, the greatest soccer teams in the world. And you come out winning that title in fashion that you deserve to win it. And on top of that, with the viewership crossing over 100 million people all around the world. The UEFA Champions League final does almost or similar the same numbers as the Super Bowl does in the United States. That's how big the UEFA Champions League final really is. Man City wins the title. They get their first they finally cross over, getting their first UEFA Champions League title. They've been nipping at it for a number of years, but they finally got the championship. And already they're in the knockout phases already. And many people believe that they could win it all again. They are one of the considered favorites. They're right there at the mix. They could be out, be there at the end. One other team that I've been hearing is Real Madrid. One of the greatest soccer teams in Spain. They dominate as well. They are right now in the mix. So those would be the two teams that could win it. We'll wait and see what happens there. The final was in Istanbul, Turkey. I don't know where the final is yet this year, but the game will be on CBS on the mothership. And normally the UEFA Champions League final is normally at the end of May. So that's one of the big highlight events coming up. And then, of course, with everything in 2024, from the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Final, and then we'll continue on our road, whatever may lead us. I can't wait. So 23 was a very interesting year. 24, there's some chances for where Anthony Florio, myself, or even Michael Bullock might have some magical moments on TXN Sports World, respectively. When it comes to Anthony Florio, his Buffalo Bills is looking amazing. My Miami Dolphins are definitely looking like we might be looking at Super Bowl. Well, we got Super Bowl aspirations. I don't know if either one of our teams is going to make it to the end. NCAA basketball, you always know that's a crapshoot. You never know how that's going to play out. The Bruins and the Rangers are looking really good right now in the NHL. Michael Bullock's Boston Celtics looking really good right now, where they could make a run at an NBA championship. Chicago, not so much. And then obviously we got to wait and see what baseball brings once the season starts. But obviously Anthony with the New York Yankees, Bullock with the Red Sox, my Atlanta Braves. We all have that desire and that dream of possibly getting to the World Series. I know for the Braves, our road just got 1,000 times tougher with the news or with the moves that the Los Angeles Dodgers have done. That does make my life a living hell coming up for this upcoming year. So, yeah, there's really nothing more to add. Michael Bullock, come on in front and center. Give us your thoughts on the year was in 2023 in the world of sport, my friend.
Yeah, and Fletch, here's another reminder of why you need to be very careful with when it comes to the Rangers. Look what happened with the Bruins this year. We finished with the best record in the NHL, our best season in a long time, and then look what happened. I mean, we we get trounced in the first round in 7 games to a number 8 seed. Uh, yeah, that's you always got to be cautious of that. So unfortunately, my team found out the hard way. So, but yeah, 2023 was definitely an interesting year to say the very least. You said Georgia repeating as national champions, trouncing the TCU in a game that was never ever close at all. And then of course the NCAA tournaments were really good. I mean, then of course the NBA playoffs were really good. I mean, especially in the conference finals. Well, where my team, the Celtics, they started off down 3 games to none to the Miami Heat, and then they won 3 in a row. And we were thinking, do they have a chance to do what the Red Sox did in '04? But then we all know how that ended, and where the Miami Heat blew out the Celtics at the TD Garden and advanced to the finals. But that's where they ran into Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, where the Nuggets won their first uh, NBA championship. And then, of course, like you said, the Golden Knights finally winning their first Stanley Cup title, thanks to Bruce Cassidy, which I'm sure some Bruins fans are probably not happy about it. With like like he should have won a Stanley Cup title with the Bruins, but fortunately, it is what it is. We had our chance in 2019, and you know what happened there. So yeah, we had the baseball season going on, and oh yeah, if of course we forgot about the NFL season. Of course, the New England, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs winning another Super Bowl title, their second, in a really good Super Bowl game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course Tom Brady retiring after over 20 years in the league. Of course, the Texas Rangers winning their first World Series title, and yeah, of course we can't wait to see the college football playoff extended starting next season, and of course, I mean a lot. I can't wait to see a lot of things happen when with the NCAA tournament, when of course the NBA and NHL playoffs, the baseball season, so many things. And of course, if you're a Patriots fan, of course, you got to look forward to June 12th, 2024, because that's when the GOAT Tom Brady will be inducted into the team's Hall of Fame. Because Floria, we were there when, of course, they honored Tom Brady at halftime. Of course, when we were watching the game at Skeff's between the Patriots and the Eagles, and Robert Kraft was the one who made the announcement that he's waiving the 4-year wait period that you normally have when you retire to get into whether it's a pro Hall of Fame or even the team's Hall of Fame. But Kraft said for Tom Brady, we're waiving that 4-year wait period. We're putting him in on June 12th,
Day, I'll never
2024.
forget.
Hmm. What'd you
Yeah,
say? Yeah, I mean that's a yeah. I can't wait to see Gillette Stadium when that's going to be filled up to capacity when the GOAT gets inducted into the team's Hall of Fame. So a lot of good, a really good sports year in 2023, and I really do look forward to what 2024 brings. So there's really nothing more to say except Florio. I think it's time we get into our preview of the New Year's Six bowl games.
All right. So with all that, ladies and gentlemen, let us dive on in to the New Year's 6 bowl games. And it all starts tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern in a game that can be seen on ESPN, as it will be the Cotton Bowl Classic that will emanate from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, Jerry World, as we will have it will be the number 7 Ohio State Buckeyes squaring off against the number 9 Missouri Tigers. ESPN, of course, they will have all of these games, of course. And on the call for this one will be Dave Patch, Dusty Dvoracek, and Tom Luginbill for ESPN. And Ohio State opening up as a 4.5-point favorite. So 4.5 is the spread here. So with all that being said, gentlemen, let's dive on in with our first matchup here. For the final season, the Cotton, Peach, Orange, and Fiesta Bowls are not included in the college football playoff. As the world moves to a 12-team field, all historic New Year's 6 games will be folded into quarter and semifinal matches for the foreseeable future. This year's slate of New Year's 6 games kicks off with the Cotton Bowl tomorrow night and ends with the Fiesta Bowl on January 1st before we dive into the college football playoffs, which will come last, by the way. So let's start it off. It might be easier to compile a list of who is playing for Ohio State than who isn't. The most notable not suiting up in the scarlet and gray include quarterback Kyle McCord, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., and defensive tackle Michael Hall. There's a list of all conference players eligible for the NFL draft that haven't yet decided. Quarterback Devin Brown will get the start for Ohio State. Missouri is without their top 2 defenders, linebacker Tyron Hopper and corner Enos Rakestraw, due to injuries. However, the rest of the team is intact, as Mizzou plays in its first New Year's 6 bowl since 2013. Receiver Luther Burden was one of college football's most dynamic players, while Cody Schrader led the SEC in rushing. This game is packed with offensive talent and defensive prowess. The Buckeyes have not lost a non-playoff bowl game since 2011 and a non-playoff New Year's 6 game since 2008. However, the buy-in comes from the Tigers, and their roster, I believe, is in better shape. I'm calling for an upset here. I think Missouri's going to do it. I got Missouri winning the Cotton Bowl 27-24. Missouri upsets Ohio State. McCord and Harrison not playing. That weighs very heavily. So I gotta go with Missouri to pull it out. But if Ohio State were to win, I would not at all be surprised if they did. So not much more to say here. Missouri pulls the upset 27-24. MF, we kick off the New Year's 6 tomorrow night, Cotton Bowl Classic. We ranked it at number 4 in our list. So with that being said, MF, who you got tomorrow night in Jerry World? Can Ohio State find a way without McCord and Harrison? Or will Mizzou pull the upset? I think Mizzou can do it.
I think Mizzou can, yeah. Without Kyle McCord, that was one of the biggest blows. And then to hear that that Marvin Harrison Jr. Or as Gus Johnson would said, Maserati Marv would go, he's not going. That you lose your best quarterback and you lose your best wide receiver in one of the biggest games of the year. And then on top of that, here's another problem. You know that every bowl team, you get an allowed amount of tickets for your respective bowl games. Ohio State has not sold half of their tickets for that game. Missouri sold all of their tickets for the Cotton Bowl Classic. That pretty much tells you how they feel about this game and what they feel about being in the New Year's Six. One is happy to be there and is ready to win. The other could care less about playing this game. Missouri wins and beats Ohio State. Michael Bullock, it's yours.
Yeah, no Kyle McCord, no Marvin Harrison Jr. And yeah, I mean, Ohio State not selling all their tickets. I mean, that's a problem there, and that's a sign that Ohio State could care less about it. I mean, that's why McCord and Harrison are not even playing. Well, for Missouri, with only two key guys hurt, they're going to have their full complement of guys, and I'm going to make it a unanimous here, and I'm going to go with the Missouri Tigers to pull off the upset and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. So, yeah, there's really nothing more to say. Let's move on to the next game.
All right. And we have that one game tomorrow night. We got two games on Saturday. And we started off with the first half of that Saturday doubleheader. It'll be at 12 noon over on ESPN, as it will be the Peach Bowl. And that will feature the number 10 Penn State squaring off against the number 11 Ole Miss Rebels, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And on the call for ESPN for that game will be Mark Jones, Louis Riddick, and Quint Kessenich. And it is Penn State. Penn State opening as a 4.5-point favorite, just like Ohio State is. So there isn't much to say here. MF, Peach Bowl, number 11 Ole Miss, number 10 Penn State. This game, we ranked it at number 5 on our side. So who you got in this unique matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be one of those interesting matchups. I kind of feel like Penn State. I think they can grind it down, grind you out. More of a defensive battle than anything else. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get. I think this is not going to be as high scoring. If it gets into a track meet, then Ole Miss wins. Ole Miss will win it if it turns into a track meet, if it goes high scoring. But if this starts to become a defensive battle, like a ground and pound, and that points only will come in a premium, that's when Penn State really excels and really starts to play their best football. So I got Penn State winning the game. Michael Bullock, I give it to you.
Yeah, I got Penn State winning this one as well. I think this is going to be a defensive battle, and I don't know if Ole Miss can be able to hang around and match with it. I mean, yes, it's been a really good season for Ole Miss, but to match a defensive battle with the Penn State, I think it's going to be a tough challenge. So I'm going with the Penn State Nittany Lions to win, but if Ole Miss does pull it off, I would not at all be surprised. So it's yours for you.
Yes, indeed. But all right, well, I'll get into that in just a moment. But first, almost everyone will play in this game, save for Penn State pass rusher Chop Robinson and Ole Miss tackle Micah Pettis. The Rebels have been loading up in the portal for a monster 2024 season. But the 2023 team took huge strides forward. Jackson Dart improved as a passer, and Trey Harris emerged as a superstar. Both teams boast the most impressive list of losses. Ole Miss's 2 losses came at Alabama and at Georgia, while Penn State's 2 losses came against Michigan and Ohio State. In their other games, these 2 teams laid waste to their opponents. Penn State has the more dependable defense, a unit that held its opposition to peanuts. Even against Ohio State and Michigan, the stop unit applied the brakes well. The Nittany Lions also showed the ability to score on elite defenses, beating Iowa 31-0 which Ole Miss lacks. So I'm going to go with Penn State as well. I got Penn State winning the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. By the way, Cotton Bowl Classic, I believe that's under Goodyear. So this one is under Chick-fil-A. Penn State wins the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Final score for me, 31-20. Penn State wins the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Outside of the college football playoff semifinals, we come perhaps to the most intriguing of the outside New Year's Six bowls right here. Outside of the playoffs, that is. And ladies and gentlemen, before I get into that, we have breaking news, a final from Thursday Night Football. The Cleveland Browns are postseason bound. They have just defeated the New York Jets 37-20. The Jets improved to 11-5 on the season. The Jets dropped to 6-10. And for the first time since the COVID-induced 2020 season, the Cleveland Browns are heading to the playoffs, and the first team to make the playoffs having four different quarterbacks make multiple starts. We're going to save that recap for the end of our show here tonight. So once we finish with the New Year's Six, then we will dive in to this Thursday Night Football game. And then we can dive into the rest of the NFL action of Week 17 tomorrow night as part of NFL Friday. But for right now, let's get back to the New Year's Six here. This next game came in at number 3. And this is our number 3 game. And what a matchup this is going to be. The Capital One Orange Bowl from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And on the call for that one will be Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer, and Katie George. Georgia opening up as a 19.5-point favorite as we have the number 5 Florida State Seminoles squaring off against the number 6 Maiden Georgia Bulldogs. And Georgia opening up as a 19.5-point favorite. Michael Bolek, there's nothing left to say except this game mired in controversy, of course, because of these two teams being left out of the college football playoff. Georgia, who was the number 1 team, nearly wire to wire before they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. Florida State ran the table, had a great case, but their quarterback was injured. Their star quarterback, Jordan Travis, injured. Backup quarterback, and I think it was a third-string quarterback. Not enough for the committee to put him in. So this game will truly tell us which one of these teams really should have been in. If Georgia wins, okay, whatever. But what would happen if Florida State were to win this game? Then what?
Oh, if Florida State somehow pulls this off, then they're going to be, they're going to turn right to the committee and they say, see, we were good enough to be put into the college football playoff, and yet you yahoos decided to leave us out. So this would be the ultimate middle finger to the committee. But if Georgia wins, not only wins but blows them out, then I think it's going to end all conversations and show why the committee was justified in leaving them out. So yeah, I mean, both of these teams are playing for pride. I mean, with being left out of the college football playoff, but look, if Jordan Travis was playing, maybe they would have a chance. But when you go up against a team that has won back-to-back national championships, and especially coming off of a tough SEC championship loss, Georgia's going to be so motivated. So, sorry, Florida State fans. I know I'm about to anger you guys, but I don't give a damn. Georgia's going to win, and they're going to win this one big time. But if Florida State wins, watch out. You're going to see Florida State and their fans give the biggest middle finger to the college football playoff committee ever. So, nothing more to say except Florio, it is yours. Like I said, if Florida State pulls this off, they're going to turn around and give the double middle finger to the college football playoff committee,
a la Stone Cold Steve Austin. So
yeah,
absolutely. Nobody has a more ravaged roster than Florida State. They're down to QB3 and Brock Glenn, who completed just 8 of 21 passes for 55 yards in the ACC championship game against Louisville. No players who caught a pass in that game will play in this one, and both top rushers are out. Further, Florida State star Jared Verse opted out alongside 3 other defensive starters. Georgia is missing a couple of key pieces, namely linebacker Jamin Dumas-Johnson, but they're far more intact than Florida State. Star tight end Brock Bowers will forego the game to focus on the NFL draft, and a few other high-round players could follow. However, most importantly, quarterback Carson Beck will play in the game and return in 2024. Missing out on the college football playoff has opposite effects for these teams. Florida State and its 12 absent starters were dejected by the decision. Georgia took it as motivation, led by college football's top motivator in their coach Kirby Smart. I agree with Bullock. This game could get ugly. I got Georgia, and I got them winning big. And I think out of all the, well, let me rephrase that. This is one of 2 locks. I have, there are two of these games have locks. This is one of them. I got Georgia winning, and I got them winning rather comfortably. 45-17, Georgia all over Florida State in the Capital One Orange Bowl. So not much more to say here. MF, number 6, Georgia, number 5, Florida State, the Orange Bowl in your house, Hard Rock, on Saturday afternoon. The 2 teams that were left out of the college football playoff. What says you?
I'm in agreement with you guys. I think Georgia's going to win this game. Going into this, I was kind of feeling like, all right, FSU's probably going to come out. They're going to be really more motivated. They're going to be more angrier because they're probably going to feel like they got slighted, and they're going to use this as motivation. But then you started to notice that all the guys started dropping out. All the guys were pulling out of the game, either injuries or NFL draft, and you could see this is a shell of the team, and that's why you saw the 19-point spread. All of a sudden, you start to notice, and you're like, oh no, if you're Florida State, this was the wrong thing to do. You want to make a statement. You want to prove to the world that you want to be national champions. You guys should have been all locked in. You have your own selves to blame if you lose this game. So basically, you make the committee look like a bunch of geniuses at the end of the day. If you do not win this game.
And another thing, Fletch, and another thing. I mean, do you think some of them, I mean, not only because of draft and other things, but you think because of they're so angry, it's like, what's the point of playing in this game when we're left out of it? That's the thing.
I mean, yes, in one sense, but
because if that's the case, then I think that's kind of childish. Because look, you have a chance to make a statement, not only to the nation but to the entire committee. And if you're going to pull out because of that, I'm sorry to say it, and I know I'm going to upset Florida State fans. That's pretty childish.
It is. No, and I agree with that, no doubt. But the thing that kind of irked me about this is then it also got political. And I'm sorry, I don't give a shit. Politics and sports have no business to be mixed at all. All these
I don't understand. I don't understand why Governor Ron DeSantis is getting involved.
No, Bullock, please do not get me ranting. I do not want to go on a rant. I do not want to go there. Just no.
I'm just mentioning one name. I'm not going to mention other names. That's just one name that.
Mind your
I
P's and
know,
Q's, Bullock.
I know, but this is not the time or the place for it. I mean it. This isn't the time or the place. So, like I said, there's certain things in life and certain things in society that should be dealt with. All this lawsuit and all this pettiness from the state of Florida about Florida State not getting into the college football playoff, that's childish. That's petty. That's ridiculous. That's, whatever. And look, for a committee to make the decisions that they made, it is what it is. Now, if you want to claim that all ESPN had something to do with this, that they wanted the 4 best teams, that's why they left us out, because they felt like we were another TCU. Hey, by all means, you can have that argument. You can have that discussion. You can say whatever you want to say with that. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sure ESPN had a little something to do with Florida State being left out of the college football playoff. I'm pretty sure of it. But I'm not, but again, I digress. But the minute, the government got involved and everybody was saying, oh, we're going to sue the college football playoff for leaving Florida State. No. That's when you lost me. That's when you basically, that's when I'm like, no, my friend, you can't do that. Because again, politics and sports should not mix, should not be involved, should not have gotten to that point. Look, if you want to feel sorry for the kids and feel sorry for the coaching staff, you got every right to do that. And you got every right to be angry, and those people do. But then once you get the outside forces that wants to paint a narrative for political gain, no. That's where the line gets drawn, at least in my eyes, more than anything else. So, but at the end of the day, like I said, the minute Florida State players started pulling out, I don't want to play this game anymore. The minute you lost any respect or any sympathy from me, because that's exactly what you deserve. This ass kicking that Georgia's going to be giving you at the Orange Bowl is going to validate the reason why you don't belong in the college football playoff. And then on top of that, for you to threaten or leave the ACC, that's another discussion for another day. And that's going to be the mother of all rants. I'm not going to do it on Florio because I respect him too much, and I'm not going to do it. But if that day ever comes, you thought Derek Ferrera's rants were bad on his Yankee Messiah page? Get ready for the mother of all rants. The only thing is I will try to be as tasteful as I can, but with the way that Florida State's trying to get out of the ACC, that might be a little more harder for me to do. But anyway, Florio, it's yours.
And that's the thing. I mean, now they want to leave the ACC. It's really getting out of hand. I mean, it really is. I mean, and all just because you got left out of the college football playoff. Really.
But the thing is that I hate to say this, but Florida State's been looking for an out for the last couple of years. So this is not the first time that Florida State has been threatening to leave the ACC. They've been threatening to leave the ACC for the last 2 or 3 years. It got swept under the carpet because nobody's been covering it. But because of what happened with the college football playoff and everything else, now it's becoming an issue. Now this was like the time for them to run. They've been looking to try to get into the SEC for the last few years now, ever since this so-called realignment started.
And the thing is, what would the late great Bobby Bowden think of this whole thing with Florida State right now?
He's rolling in his grave right now, I'll tell you.
Exactly. I mean, and that's why I'm saying it. As far as I'm concerned, Florida State deserves to get their asses handed to them. And if the Florida State fans don't like what we're saying, then as far as I'm concerned, you can kiss my ass.
Yeah. Well said. So
yeah, and go screw yourselves.
That concludes the dramatic portion of the evening. Let's reel it in here, and let's get into some more positive stuff, which is the primary objective of our shows in the first place. So let's dive on in to the final non-college football playoff bowl game for the New Year's Six, which will take place on Monday afternoon, New Year's Day. Kickoff of 1 p.m. Eastern over on ABC. It will be the Verbo Fiesta Bowl from State Farm Stadium, formerly the University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. And that one will feature the number 8 Oregon Ducks squaring off against the number 23 Liberty Flames. And on the call in this game on ESPN, of course, and on the call for that one will be Bob Wischusen, Robert Griffin III, and Chris Budden. Oregon opening up as a 16.5-point favorite. So we go back to the top, and me. Heisman finalist Bo Nix announced he would play one more game for Oregon. Running back Bucky Irving and standout defensive tackle Brandon Dorlus also decided to suit up before leaving for the NFL. Oregon finished the season as the number 1 offense in efficiency, and both their losses came to number 2 Washington, both decided by a couple plays. Liberty secured a 13-0 season, a feat very few teams in the country can boast, and will represent the group of 5 in the New Year's Six. Kadon Salter and Quentin Cooley led the Flames to the number 1 rushing attack in the country, becoming the first non-service academy to do so since New Mexico in 2016. However, Liberty did not play any teams from the Power 5, and their schedule ranked the easiest in the country. To go from Sam Houston State and FIU to Oregon is a major step up in caliber. With the buy-in from the Ducks, the Flames, it's not might be, they are in for a long afternoon. This is my other lock. I got Oregon winning this one also comfortably. 56-28, Oregon all over Liberty in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. But let's keep one thing in mind here. The Verbo Fiesta Bowl has produced some wild and crazy moments. Nobody did anybody give Boise State a chance against Oklahoma in that Fiesta Bowl? Absolutely not. And what did Boise do? They kicked the door down and they says, we're here. So that was the night they arrived. We've seen stranger things happen with these Power 5 teams. Heck, last year, Tulane beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. So you never, ever know. I would personally love to see it happen, but this Oregon team is just way too good. Maybe they'll hang with them early, but Oregon's going to run away with it. 56-28, Oregon over Liberty. I just wanted you guys to keep that in mind, but we all know where we're going with this. So, MF, I remember when the selections came out, when I dropped it in our messenger chat, when I said it was Liberty and Oregon, you were like, I don't like this matchup.
I don't. I still don't. I honestly think that Liberty is over their heads. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll play great. I think they'll give it everything they got. But Bo Nix is going to be there, and all them boys are going to be there. And you don't think that head coach is going to have them boys locked in, thinking you don't want to be Oklahoma, you don't want to be that USC team that loses to a non-Power 5 conference to be a laughingstock for your team. He's like, they will be focused. They will be ready. And yes, it is an early start time. Remember, it's going to be about 11 a.m. over in Arizona for this game. So it's going to be a very early morning for them, but they'll be right. They'll be ready. They'll be focused. I'm sorry. I don't think Liberty stands a chance, man. I got Oregon winning this one and going away. Nothing more to say. Michael Bullock, it's yours.
Yeah, good for Liberty that they're getting this opportunity at a New Year's Six game, but they're going up against a powerful Oregon team with a Heisman Trophy finalist in Nix, and yeah, it's going to be a long, long afternoon, early morning, whatever you want to call it in Arizona. So Oregon wins this one in the laugher, but Florio, it's time to get into the two college football playoff semifinal matchups, and we start off with the one that's near and dear to your heart, my friend.
Well, more so, good old MF Michael Fletcher, but let's rephrase that. It's near and dear to all of us.
Exactly.
But MF, this is especially special for him because coming up now, as we get into the college football playoff semifinals, there's no question about it. This is, without a doubt, in the illustrious history of this game, this Rose Bowl game presented by Prudential is without a doubt the most anticipated Rose Bowl matchup in history. This over 100 plus years of history. It is, I don't know what the well, hold on, maybe I can get it here. It's the 110th annual Rose Bowl. Game number 110 is going to be, without a doubt, the most anticipated matchup in history. As we kick off the college football playoff semifinal slate, Monday, New Year's Day, kickoff of 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It is the Rose Bowl game presented by Prudential from the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. And it will feature the number 1 Michigan Wolverines squaring off against the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. A game of this magnitude, only one announced team can do it. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and not one, but 2 sideline reporters. Their traditional sideline reporter, Holly Rowe, and another sideline reporter will be joining in on the fun. Laura Rutledge will also be in on this as well. Michigan opening up as a 1.5 point favorite. And out of all the spreads in the New Year's Six, it's the smallest and the closest. So there isn't anything left for me to say except it's only fitting that good old MF Michael Fletcher leads it off. This is our game. By the way, Liberty and Oregon came in at number 6, by the way. This is the game right here, number 1, with a bullet. MF, a lot has happened with Michigan. It started with that opening 3 or 4 game suspension for Jim Harbaugh. Was suspended for the final 3 games because of the sign stealing nonsense. And a golden opportunity for the Michigan Wolverines to do a la Cody Rhodes, and that's finished the story. And to do so, you got to go up against a team that has, for the most part, been like a tribal chief of college football, ahead of the table. That being the Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, and the whole 9 yards. A team that stumbled out of the gate. They got embarrassed at home by Texas. And last time I checked, since that loss to Texas, they haven't lost any other games. They ran the table and disposed of Georgia in the SEC championship game, putting an end to any chance Georgia had of a three-peat, of winning 3 straight titles. We're guaranteed a new champion. So, big question here. A lot of people are giving Bama the benefit of the doubt based on the experience and the whole 9 yards, and in a way, rightfully so. But what about Michigan? Number 1, undefeated, beat Ohio State again, took care of Iowa in the Big Ten championship. Will it the simple question here? Will it be next victim for Alabama, or will Michigan take one step closer to finishing the story? Will they be one step closer to finishing the story, a la Cody Rhodes? And as the Kirk Herbstreit to my Chris Fowler, now more than ever, do that thing I like. Hello, friends.
Yes. It's gonna be absolutely a phenomenal game. I think we can obviously say it. There's enough storylines that we'll be able to jump at. We'll be able to get through. We'll definitely clarify the game a lot more deeper once we get into New Year's Day. The biggest story that, if you're Michigan, it's not just a finish the story. It's them against the nation. Nobody wants Michigan to win the national championship. Everybody will say, oh, if they win the championship, it deserves an asterisk because of the sign stealing scandal, all this stuff. The committee, if you really think about it, punished Michigan by giving them Alabama in the first round in that semifinal matchup, where Michigan probably felt like we're probably going to face off with Florida State. You know, if the committee was gonna do the right thing, you put Florida State here, and that would be that. But then they throw Alabama there, and you're like, whoa. All right. Message sent. We see what you're doing. You're trying to get us out. Okay. You doubted us once and took Jim Harbaugh away from us for the first 3 games. All right. We had no problems because those are cupcake teams. Then you had us lose Harbaugh a second time because of the Connor Stallions, Stein scandal. All right. But this one hurt even worse because this was during Penn State, Maryland, and you had them sit out the game itself against Ohio State. So we went through that hurdle. No problem. Went through the Big Ten championship, won it, got the number 1 seed, rightfully so. Now you throw Alabama in our direction. JJ McCartney has had a month to prepare for this game. Offensively, I don't know how good they're going to be. Defensively, they are the most locked in that I saw all season long. And yes, we do know what Bama can bring to the table. They're going to be that strong team. So you know it's going to be a dogfight. But you're in freaking Pasadena. The last time I checked, Michigan has a really good record in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl. This is Big Ten territory, big. And mother ruckers, you're going into our house to try to take what we rightfully deserve, the national championship? Get the F out. This is a statement game. No more, no less. This is the moment where Michigan cements their legacy and everything else. Next victim, my ass, Florio. The next victim is basically Alabama getting the boot of the freaking ass by the Michigan Wolverines because this is a revenge tour. This is us against the nation. You want to play that game, NCAA, college football playoff? Fine by me. Michigan wins. They go to the national championship game. Bullock, it's yours.
Oof, man. I mean, I don't know how in the world I'm gonna top what good old MF just said, but yeah, this is Michigan. I mean, this was probably like you said, their punishment from the NCAA by them getting the Alabama Crimson Tide, but this is their chance to finish the story and to prove to all the doubters, to all the haters who say if they win it all, they deserve an asterisk. Well, you need to go out there, you need to make a statement and say, we've worked our butts off to get back here for a third straight year. And you think Alabama's going to take it away from us? No. It's destiny for this team. Like you said, Michigan is no stranger to the Rose Bowl. I mean, they've had success in it. So, yes, you don't have one of your All-American offensive linemen in Zach Zinter, but I think this team is going to overcome it. They're going to overcome whatever Nick Saban's going to throw at them, and I think you're going to get a lot of Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. And, of course, you're also going to see some big plays from Colston Loveland. And J.J. McCarthy is going to have probably one of his best games. So, Michigan wins, goes to the national championship, and all in all, sticks it to the NCAA and to all the haters out there. So, Florio, it is yours.
I'd be lying if I said I was scared about Alabama. I mean, based on that experience, I'm just throwing that out there. But let me dive on into this on my end. Special set for these games here, of course. The Michigan Wolverines have had no trouble reaching the college football playoff in the last 3 years. The 3-time reigning Big Ten champions experienced difficulties once it reached the playoff, as it suffered losses to the Maiden Georgia Bulldogs 2 years ago and the TCU Horned Frogs last year. Michigan comes into its third college football playoff berth as the number 1 seed for the first time. But it has, without a doubt, the tougher matchup of the top 2 seeds in the Rose Bowl against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama knocked off the previous top-ranked team in the college football playoff rankings, the Georgia Bulldogs, to confirm its playoff position. The Crimson Tide were one of the most improved teams in the FBS from September to December, and they will challenge a Michigan defense that has been excellent all season. Michigan knows exactly how it wants to control any game, and if it succeeds at that and takes Alabama out of a rhythm, it will finally find itself in the college football playoff national championship game. 2 headlines. Michigan in search of first college football playoff win. Michigan has produced a 38-1 record in its last 3 regular seasons, but it is 0-2 in the college football playoff. The Wolverines were outplayed by Georgia 2 years ago and lost a high-scoring affair versus TCU last season. Jim Harbaugh's team carries plenty of experience in the Rose Bowl, but now it needs to follow through on the lofty goals it set for itself. Michigan has a clear path to victory, and it is one that was followed throughout the regular season. The Wolverines love to control the clock with a methodical and dominant rushing attack and with a strong defense. That was a successful strategy for a majority of the season, including in the 26-0 win in the Big Ten championship game over the Iowa Hawkeyes. Michigan held the ball for 36 minutes and 22 seconds, and it forced 3 turnovers out of the Hawkeyes. The Wolverines had the ball for 33 minutes in their biggest conference triumphs over the Penn State Nittany Lions and Ohio State Buckeyes. Blake Corum ran for 2 touchdowns in each of the wins over Ohio State and Penn State. He will be relied on to move the ball down the field once again on Monday, on New Year's Day. J.J. McCarthy will be asked to make a few clutch throws as well, but if he gets dragged into a pass-heavy battle with Jalen Milroe, the Wolverines will be at a disadvantage because they would be pulled out of their style of play. That's the Michigan headline. The Alabama headline, Alabama needs another perfect performance. Alabama turned in its best performance of the season in the SEC championship game. The Crimson Tide contained the Georgia offense to 321 yards, and they faced the former top-ranked team to come from behind in the fourth, and they forced the former top-ranked team to come from behind in the fourth quarter. Alabama's defense allowed just 10 points in the first 3 quarters, and it rushed out to a 10-point lead at halftime. The Crimson Tide defense needs to play at that same level in the Rose Bowl to force Michigan out of an offensive rhythm. Nick Saban's team is capable of that type of performance, but it has not been on display all season. Alabama was in difficulty against the Auburn Tigers in the Iron Bowl because of a 24-point concession, and it was ripped apart by Jaden Daniels and the LSU Tigers offense on November 4, before the quarterback suffered a fourth-quarter injury. Saban knows what it takes to prepare his team for a playoff game, and that is what makes Alabama so scary of an opponent to Michigan. Jalen Milroe also displayed improvement over the season. He delivered the most important throw of Alabama's season on the game-winning touchdown against Auburn, and he completed at least 65% of his passes in 5 of the last 6 games. Milroe has the potential to lead Alabama to a victory, but if Michigan's defense takes over, the quarterback may not have a chance to lead another comeback. Michigan has been the more consistent of the 2 Rose Bowl participants all season. The Wolverines asserted their will against all of their opponents, and that is what makes them so dangerous, not just against Alabama, but in the college football playoff national championship game as well. Michigan should use a heavy dose of Blake Corum and benefit from a few clutch throws out of J.J. McCarthy to pull off a Rose Bowl victory. Alabama should keep the contest close, but it may not see enough of the ball in the second half to conquer Michigan. It's going to be close, but I'm going to agree with you guys. I am going to go with the Michigan Wolverines to somehow, some way do the impossible and beat Alabama, take one step closer to finishing the story. 24-20, Michigan over Alabama. But do not be surprised if Alabama somehow steals it. So with that being said, let's get into the other college football playoff semifinal matchup, as it will feature the number 2 Washington Huskies squaring off against the number 3 Texas Longhorns. That, of course, will be in the Sugar Bowl Monday night at 8:30 over on ESPN. The second half of that college football playoff doubleheader, and this game, of course, sponsored by Allstate, the Allstate Sugar Bowl, and on the call for this one, it will be Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy, and they will have 2 sideline reporters. Their traditional sideline reporter, Molly McGrath, as well as Katie George. They will have the call. This game will be live, of course, from the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. And according to my spread here, Texas is opening up as a 4-point favorite. So not much more to say here. Michael Bullock, come on in. This is our number 2 game here. We got number 3 Texas, number 2 Washington in the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome in New Orleans. Who's going to the championship game?
Man, this is going to be another good one here. I mean, Washington really made a statement in the Pac-12 title game to show why they're worthy of that number 2 seed. And then when it comes to Texas, I mean, what a statement they had in the Big 12 title game. So, man, this is another tough one for me to call. But man, this is so close. I really can't. But you know what? I'm going to say by the slimmest of margins, I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies to beat the Texas Longhorns in this one. But this is going to be a very close one. And I'll also say this: I'm just not comfortable with this pick. I mean, I also just have this funny feeling that Texas is going to pull it out. So for now, but I just want to enjoy this as a fan and just see what happens here. So Florio, as I give it to you, I'm going with Washington, but I am not at all comfortable with this choice.
Understandable. Absolutely understandable. So the Washington Huskies come into the Sugar Bowl in the same position they were in for the Pac-12 championship game. Michael Penix Jr. and company are once again the underdog, despite being the higher-ranked team in this matchup. The Texas Longhorns are favored by 4 points over the Pac-12 champions for the other college football playoff semifinal in New Orleans. Texas plowed through its final few opponents to land the number 3 seed in the final college football playoff rankings and the Big 12 championship. The Longhorns offense, led by quarterback Quinn Ewers, is comparable at some positions to Washington's unit, which is what makes the matchup so fascinating. Both teams' headlines for Washington: looking for a second straight win as an underdog. Washington will embrace the underdog role for the second straight game. The Huskies closed as a 10-point underdog in the Pac-12 championship game against the Oregon Ducks. Washington controlled that contest from start to finish and looked more like the favorite side in Las Vegas. A similar approach will likely be used to prepare the Huskies for their trip to New Orleans. The Huskies are probably the best underdog to back throughout the entire bowl schedule because they have found a way to win in close games all season. Washington thrived in the fourth quarter against the Oregon State Beavers and the Washington State Cougars. It followed those close wins up with its best showing of the season versus Oregon. Penix, Rome Odunze, and company are as battle-tested of an offensive unit as you will find in the FBS, and that is what makes them such a dangerous side as an underdog. The other headline: Texas trying to build off dominant Big 12 title game showing. Texas also authored its best performance of the season to confirm its spot in the college football playoff. The Longhorns outclassed the Oklahoma State Cowboys in a 49-21 win that was sealed by halftime. Ewers torched the Oklahoma State defense for 452 passing yards, and he had three of his teammates catch at least 6 passes and record over 85 receiving yards. Texas's passing attack can be that explosive against Washington, and if it is, the Longhorns will land a spot in the national championship game. Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell will test the Washington secondary, and both of them have the potential to outplay Odunze, Washington's star wideout. Texas's defense could be the star of the game. It held its last 3 opponents to a combined 44 points. A potential slowing down of Penix and the Washington offense would go down as Texas's best defensive showing of the season. The explosiveness on both sides of the ball is why the Longhorns can be justified as a 4-point favorite over an undefeated Power 5 champion. Washington's ability to win close games could be the X factor if the Sugar Bowl is decided in the fourth quarter. Penix's leadership and big playability in those moments got Washington to 13-0, and those qualities could show up again in New Orleans. Both offenses possess a ton of pass-catching talent, so expect a few high totals out of Odunze, Mitchell, and Worthy. Each team is equipped to win a high-scoring game, and if Penix has the ball in his hands late in the fourth quarter, the Huskies should emerge victorious and with the other spot in the college football playoff national championship game. Michael Bullock, I agree with you. I, too, have the Washington Huskies winning the All-State Sugar Bowl, defeating the Texas Longhorns in what I believe will be another 5-star classic of a game. Higher scoring than the Rose Bowl game. 33-30, Washington defeats Texas in the Sugar Bowl. Not much more to say here. MF, your thoughts in our number 2 game, as it will be Texas and Washington in the Sugar Bowl. Your thoughts on that, and then we'll get into our quick Jets-Browns recap.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be the interesting matchup. I think going into this, I was thinking Texas, but if you've really seen what Washington has done, flying under the radar, the way that they've been playing, and then the way that they handled the business in the Pac-12 championship game, it almost seems like it's destiny for Washington. So I think Washington will win it. I agree with you guys, and yeah. So let's get into this. A quick recap of the game.
The final Thursday night football game of the 2023 season took place tonight. It was our number 4 game of the week, as it was the New York Jets squaring off against the Cleveland Browns from Cleveland Browns Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. And for the first time since the 2020 COVID-induced season, the Cleveland Browns are postseason bound. They defeated the New York Jets tonight by a score of 37-20. Joe Flacco, another monster game from him. 19 of 29, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Kareem Hunt had a rushing touchdown. David Njoku, 6 catches, 134 yards. Elijah Moore had a receiving touchdown to go with 61 yards. Jerome Ford, 2 receiving touchdowns, 57 yards. The defense recorded 2 sacks. Myles Garrett, as well as Wright and Hickman, had an interception of Joe Flacco. Oh, by the way, that was a pick 6. Oh, by the way. For the Jets, Trevor Siemian, not a bad game. 32 of 45, 261 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Breece Hall, solid game, rushing, 13 carries, 84 yards. Breece Hall also had a receiving touchdown, 42 yards. Garrett Wilson led the team in receiving with only 50 yards. Their defense only had 1 interception, and that was Johnson. And but nonetheless, the Cleveland Browns improved to 11-5 on the season, and they are heading to the playoffs. Whereas the New York Jets dropped to 6-10. Both teams will have their season finales, regular season finales, next week. The Cleveland Browns will be heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, while the Jets will be heading up to Foxborough to battle Michael Bullock and his New England Patriots on January the 7th. So congratulations to the Cleveland Browns, postseason bound for the first time in 4 years. Well, 3 years rather, since that COVID-induced 2020 season. And Kevin Stefanski and company, 4 different starting quarterbacks. You know, they had Deshaun Watson, they had PJ Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and of course the man who's doing it all right now, a man who I believe has discovered the fountain of youth, and that's Joe Flacco, who was playing like he did in Baltimore when he took the Ravens to the Super Bowl as part of the 2012 season. And let me tell you, this is a team that we need to keep an eye on in the playoffs, really. I mean, this is a dangerous team right now. And they did all this without Amari Cooper. Think of what could have happened if they had Amari Cooper in the lineup. It probably would have been an even bigger margin of victory, especially after what Amari Cooper did in Houston on Christmas Eve. He feasted. 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, to the tune of 51.5 fantasy points for all you fantasy geeks out there. Whew. This is we got ourselves a dark horse here. And this is a team that we definitely not only need to keep an eye on, but this is a team that we're going to have to take seriously come playoff time. If they keep doing what they're doing, who knows? This team could go places. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But nonetheless, congratulations to the Browns. And for the Jets, well, they nearly choked away against the Washington Commanders, but they somehow did just enough to win that game. They were lucky to win that game. And then tonight, yeah, just another vintage Jets performance. Although they did hang, they hang with Cleveland. I'll give them credit, but they still lost. But it is what it is, and we'll see what happens going into next season. The whole Aaron Rodgers thing and everybody else coming back. They go to New England for their finale. Cleveland goes to Cincinnati, and Cleveland they will keep a very close eye on that Dolphins-Ravens game, which is our game of the week, and we'll get into that tomorrow night on NFL Friday. But for right now, congratulations to the Cleveland Browns, postseason bound. Hell of a job. Enjoy it. Well deserved. You deserve to be there. And you've opened all our eyes. So, not much more to say here. MF, first time since 2020. Give it up for the Cleveland Browns. Postseason bound. They're heading to the tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They did it. They did what they had to do. You're gonna hear a lot of people start talking about maybe Joe Flacco for a comeback player of the year. And rightfully so. With the way that he's been doing it, or the way he's been playing, not bad for a guy who came off the practice squad and do what he did, and to make this turn around and to create the excitement that the Browns have had. I mean, it's incredible what they've done. And believe it or not, they actually still have a shot at the division title. Obviously, I know a lot of people like, well, wait a minute, how's that even possible? We'll get into it. We'll get into it tomorrow. But they do. They actually have a legit chance at it. But at the end of the day, the right team won. Nothing more to add. Bullock, it's yours.
Yeah, what can you say? I mean, this Cleveland Browns team, I mean, going to the playoffs for the second time in uh in in 3 4 years. My goodness, I mean, when Deshaun Watson went down, when Nick Chubb went down, everybody was thinking, "Oh, this team's not going to go anywhere." But the thing is, they still got a really good defense, and that's what they're going to rely on. And then Joe Flacco. I mean, here's a guy who started the season basically not watching football with his family, and then all of a sudden he goes to the Browns. He's on the practice squad, and then he's named starter for the rest of the season. And look at what he's done. So yeah, the right team won. Congratulations to Cleveland, and yeah, we need to start taking Cleveland seriously. So yeah, there's really nothing more to say except let's put a bow on this, Florio.
And we will indeed put the bow on this very special edition of TXN Sports World, our 2023 year in review special. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in, not just tonight, but all year long, whether it was our regulation shows or our college football Thursday shows, our NFL Friday shows, what have you. You are the best fans in the world, and we can't do this without each and every one of you. And we thank you all so very much for your continuing love and support all these years. And we can't wait to bring you more of this in 2024. Within the next month or so, when our regulation shows will be coming back after football is over, and some big things to look forward to. Of course, our Selection Sunday special, our draft, our NFL draft recap, our NBA draft recap, our NFL schedule release special, and then another season of College Football Thursday and NFL Friday, respectively, and so much more to look forward to. And we can't wait to bring it all to you in the coming year. We'll be back with you tomorrow night, 10:30, right back here once again on the Zone 25, the Week 17 edition of TXN Sports World NFL Friday. Diving in, and the first two games right out of the box are the two biggest games of the week: the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, and the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. Plus all the other exciting games of Week 17. We'll get into all of it tomorrow night. And then after that, we'll be off for a few days to celebrate New Year's. And then we'll be back on Tuesday night for a special Tuesday night edition of Ridiculously Raw. We will review the AEW World's End pay-per-view and the first Monday Night Raw of 2024, the Day 1 show. And then on Wednesday, it's our first Wednesday Night Madness of 2024, and it will be all about NXT New Year's Evil and the first AEW Dynamite of 2024. And then that Friday night, it'll be the Week 18 edition of NFL Friday. So a lot of exciting things to look forward to, and we can't wait to bring it all to you. So that is it. So until tomorrow night for the Week 17 edition of TXN Sports World NFL Friday, it's Anthony Florio here for Michael Bullock, and in spirit, good old MF Michael Fletcher. And of course, always and forever, the First Lady, Dee Dee Woodson. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah. Throw it up Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night, for the Week 17 edition of TXN Sports World NFL Friday, you have been watching the TXN Sports World 2023 Year in Review Special right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long, and bye, everybody, bye.